for receipt and secondary. And so we had the discussion, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Technicalities. New businesses and notices of motion. So we have the Heritage Alteration Permit, HAP 19-1, which is the Little Red Church. We've got two recommendations. We've got the chief, the CAO's recommendation that Heritage Alteration Permit, HAP 19-1, be issued subject to the Heritage Alteration Permit conditions listed. And we have the planner's recommendation that Heritage Alteration Permit, HAP 19-1, be denied. So how would council like to proceed?
Number one.
Second. Do we have any questions on that? Councilor Bissender?
Not questions, just comments. I appreciate the report being made, and I understand the importance of the heritage in that building. I think in this case it'd be a shame to tear down a perfectly good metal roof in order to replace it with cedar shakes that probably last a third of the lifespan and just end up in our landfills anyway. So I think in this situation I will support the CAO's recommendation.
Okay. And Councilor McKenna?
I just have a question around the precedents that we're setting. Does that mean Philbert Lodge can now be sheeted with a metal roof? If it's also deemed a heritage structure? Like, I guess I have questions around that. What can be done now on the siding? Can you change it out and, I don't know,
Yes.
put styrofoam on there?
Question to our planner?
I don't know how it all-
CAO? It's the CAO, go ahead.
Well, the council has no obligation to enforce the bylaw. I don't believe other parties should take anything from this situation. This recommendation that I made is based on this circumstance and applies to this circumstance. I think the circumstance at Philbert is different. They too should apply, just like this applicant should have applied earlier and done the process directly. And Philbert, I don't believe should read more than what I just said into this recommendation.
Oh, okay, go ahead, one more.
Just one more, like if we proceed with a heritage registry, how are we going to communicate to the owners of properties what can and cannot be done on their property if it's registered under a heritage registry, as Councillor McGowan has proposed? And so I think it's important down the road that we have a firm policy around communication to heritage owners.
So Councilwoman McCowan is busy educating me on the heritage registry, and I think she's correctly pointed out that the rules are actually less rigorous on the registry than they are under the current designation. But I'm just learning about the heritage registry myself, so I've got more to learn for sure.
Yeah. Councilor Grant?
I think we were getting a little bit off topic here, and we're really talking about a roof on one building. And although I don't condone sort of going and doing it and then hoping for forgiveness later, and I think that's the precedent that we're worried about, I do believe that this was done with good intention and just, didn't really understand where we're going. So I can see giving it, the one-off, but certainly the only danger here is setting a precedent, which I don't think is the case. I don't think we're doing that in this case. So,
And just to be clear, and like personally, I prefer metal roofs over any other roof structure.
Yeah.
well,
My own roof.
yeah, well, of course, but if you're trying to preserve heritage, it's not the way that building would have ever been. And when you start getting into heritage, it can get really onerous as to what's wanted and what's needed, and so it gets very particular. So, but I don't think that was the intent in this case.
No, I think it was good intent.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none. So we have we're moving number one, seconded. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Unanimous. All right, thank you. Moving on. So we're down to the PR 19-18 Child Care Space Creation Funding Applications. We have the planner's recommendation that the town of Comox endorses. I just want to make one statement first before we get into this, that in discussing this as we go through it, in no way implies council's approval of the rezoning and development application for 695 aspect. You'll see it, it's in the bottom where that, we've got the legal statements. This is here now because we're up against timeframes for grants, and we need to put, I guess, the cart before the horse, but we're wanting to make sure that we have this. And the other development will be discussed on its own merits. So, having said that, so we have the planner's recommendation. That's Town of Comox endorse creation of additional childcare spaces in the Town of Comox and indicate support for current proposed activities and willingness to provide overall grant management.
Should I move like 1, 2, 3, 4?
That's what I was just going to ask. If somebody who wants to
1, 2,
do.
3, 4.
And
Oh,
five.
And five.
And
Oh,
five,
five,
yeah.
Second.
Yeah, so we second that, great. And do we have any questions or comments on that? Councillor Swift?
I have 2 questions to the planner. What happens, I know there's a time limit on this, so a 2-year time limit for the grant money has to be utilized, is that correct?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, I seem
Get that,
to
I can get
recall
that.
it in the
In the
information,
attachments.
and with the possibility of a 6-month extension. So I'm hoping that would be realistic. What would happen if we got the grant and then we weren't able to fulfill that?
We would seek council direction if they wish to proceed on a different project, or we should allow the grant to expire. I mean, I think that, as my understanding is, if council were then to say, we would still like to proceed with that, and we have another site we're interested in, and secures an option on that site, that the grant still exists and funding still available, we would apply.
So we could take that, say we got the grant and we weren't able to do it in that site, we could do it in a different site?
No, you can reapply.
Oh, you reapply, okay.
Yes, because they're evaluated based on the cost effectiveness, location, and what specifics you're proposing within the facility itself.
Okay.
So yes, council would have they would reassess, council would be able to reassess its options at that time. So if the grant is even still available, or if it's not available. If it is available, then they would have the option of applying again for a different site,
Okay.
new
Oh,
application.
and I'm sorry, I have one more question. How much would we be applying for? The entire $4 million?
We would be applying for the purchase of the land, the commercial retail unit, so the was it 190 square feet of indoor space, the outdoor play area, approximately 200 square meters, plus all the furnishings in terms of the improvements within the building.
So do we have an idea of what that would be? How much money? that
Yes,
would
we
be?
do.
The numbers are still coming in. It will probably be around $1 million.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Grant?
Yeah, okay, so I find this unfortunate in the timing because it really provides poor optics for what we're trying to do here. But I think that the reality is that we have to remain open-minded on the building and whether it does get built. And so my question becomes, if this were to take longer than 2 years and for some reason we weren't able to get the grant, what happens to that space if, there's a lot of ifs here, but if that building were built, there'd be a space there. Would that be only used for childcare, or would it be a commercial use? Because as you told me today, we went from a glut of commercial to a lack of commercial all of a sudden. So the owner would have the owner of the site would have a commercial space, is that correct?
Yes, the proposed zoning for that area would zone the ground floor of that building for a variety of commercial uses, office, retail, of which one use would be a childcare facility.
Okay, but we wouldn't have ownership of that
We wouldn't have.
if we didn't go through this whole.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the province does have these programs now for the funding of spaces and for training, because there is a shortage in the unassisted private market.
Okay.
So I would be surprised if we did not get the grant, if there would be another organization or body that would have the capacity to undertake that in that commercial space by itself.
I just don't want us to end up owning a commercial space at the end of this somehow. We don't want to be in that business, right?
Well, no, we would not,
Well, we need a new town hall, so.
Yeah.
we made it clear in our discussions to date that actually we're prohibited from signing anything until not only one council would have to consider whether or not they wish to approve the rezoning. And then there's advertising requirements in terms of then contracting with a nonprofit in terms of providing that space. So council would have to advertise that, listen to any comments that are received prior to making a decision as signing on the document. That's statutory requirements.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Great. And moving down here to the records management system bylaw, we have the CAO recommendation that bylaw number 1932, 2019 be given first, second, and third reading.
Move.
And any questions on that? All in favor? Carried, thank you. And the CEO recommendation of the disposal of the Comox fire rescue system, rescue surplus equipment.
Move that.
Second.
And any questions? I just want to acknowledge Chief Schreiner there. He's always working in the community. Great. This is, benefiting another fire hall and in turn benefiting your guys. So good for you looking out for them and us. So.
Barbecue's a good hot dog, too. Love all of it.
All right, so all in favor of that? That's carried, thank you. And we have, under correspondence, we have that was the one we were talking
Move
about.
receipt.
Yeah,
Second.
okay, and all in favor? Okay, thank you. What we're going to do, we got late item, none, delegations done. We're just going to buzz right down into the, Shelley, was it the zoning amendment bylaw? Are we going to do that first and then come back to reports from members of council?
There's no reason why you can't go into reports from the council.
Okay, for some reason I thought you should do that. Okay, so we'll just start with Councillor Bissinger for reports.
Sure. So with Councillor Mayor on the news, I attended the accessibility framework legislation workshop a couple weeks ago. So they're looking at getting that legislation enacted, I guess, in the next year in BC, which is pretty neat. So we have some paperwork if anyone's interested in reading what the legislation is. I also attended Person's Day Lunch, which was pretty neat. Was able to do a talk at a climate action group at the mill, so that was pretty cool. Got some good input from most residents. Volunteered at the Halloween station at the Comox Bay, so kudos for all those downtown activities. That was really awesome. Attended a workshop on urban forestry that went over the Courtney urban forestry plan, which was pretty neat to see. I don't know if Comox has something of the sort, but a good way forward. And then we've got a bunch of meetings tomorrow and next week.
Thanks, Councillor Grant.
Yeah, so I attended the Vancouver Island Economic Summit, and I won't bore you with all the details, but I did bring the program back. And one of the things that I did go to was a food and shelter symposium that they had, and it talked about BC building funding. They have $1.9 billion for affordable housing. Of that, 20% are for deeply subsidized housing, 50% is geared to income housing, and about 30% is affordable or market housing. And the details I can give you later. But the other part was the food security, and it was to do with a group called Loaves and Fishes in Nanaimo. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they kind of go on a different program than food banks. And instead of saying we have a food shortage, they actually believe we have a food glut. And the glut is at the grocery stores where 50% of the food gets thrown out. And so what they do is they go pick up all of that and then take it and put it on the shelves, do their thing, and what they don't use, they take to farms for compost or for pigs and animals, and what that doesn't work then goes to the landfill. And it's highly successful. It's something that I've heard of over the years many a times, but it's very labor intensive. So it's interesting to see that a group actually took this on, and they actually have more food than they know what to do with in Nanaimo, and they're actually looking at branching out into other communities. And the challenge, of course, is the trucking and all of that. But they just kind of viewed it from a different perspective, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I went to the investment forum there, and they're trying to get Central Vancouver Island to be one of the business capitals of Western Canada. And the reason is because we're already a federally designated foreign trade zone here. And so there was all sorts of cool stuff that went on there. I also heard from one of the chief economists for the EDC. He talked about the world economy and the murkiness of it, and kind of where we are in the world. He has a pretty rosy outlook, although it's interesting because all the fundamentals of the economy are there, and yet it's not there. And so, why are the fundamentals good, and yet we're struggling along? And a lot of it was to do, in his opinion anyway, with the populism that goes on and all the protesting on both sides of every issue, and we see Brexit and all this stuff is just causing a lot of problems. China and the U.S. are another issue where they're really having effects on the world market. So he thinks that the upshot is that the problems with the economy, in his opinion, was self-inflicted, and it can be actually fixed quite easily. And he thinks the China-U.S. thing will probably be fixed fairly quickly because there's an election coming up in the States, and nobody wants to go in with all that going on. And it's hurting, there's blame on both sides and hurting both parties, so they will come to a conclusion which will eventually start getting our economy back together. They talk about a housing bubble in the States, and he says there's no housing bubble, there's a ton of supply there. It's just slow coming on the market. So they're expecting things to start getting back into a better economic spot within the year. What else am I got here? Circular economy was another one that we went to where it's basically companies that build something, you have waste product, they sell the waste product to somebody else, and it all sort of circulates together. So that was that. And Good Island is a new brand that they've been working on, and or Island Good, I should say. And so it's for island-made products, and you sign up and you get labeling and all that kind of stuff. I also went to the Regional District Strategic Planning session, which I found really interesting, although it was a very untypical strategic plan, I think is a fair way to put it. I think it was really designed to kind of focus us onto what we're doing and not be scatter approach all over, because we didn't really put a lot of anything new on it, and I think Russell kind of talked about what we did there, so I won't bore you with that. We had Sewer Commission, so that was again Curtis Road with $8 million to cover the bioreactors. The Curtis Road people are quite insistent that they would like that to be done, and you will probably see in the news that they've sort of put the mandate down and told us that they were going to start ramping it up in the news and that they were done with waiting and all of that, so that to come. Also attended the Water Commission meeting, and basically was how to proceed with the 113 acres we bought for watershed protection and what the best way to deal with that is. I think we bought that one in about 2013, I think. Yeah, anyway. And what else have I got? Oh, and I talked to the BIA this morning. They're going to be coming to our meeting as a delegation next week, just to, before the strategic planning, they want to throw some ideas and thoughts at us of things that they would like to see. And I attended the committee of the whole meeting yesterday as well. And back to water, we had to give another $730,000 into the water because of the leak that occurred under the plant in the Pennington River. Went over budget by that much burst down, we didn't have any choice, so that one's been done. And I think that's about it for me.
Wow.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, great report. So on Curtis Road, is there an estimate of like what it would cost to fix the perceived emission problem they have down there?
The cover on the bioreactors is about 8.5 million, and that is assumed to be able to fix the problem or get it down to an odor level that's under what they're asking for. But it's a lot of money to spend. And so they kept talking in terms of what was acceptable. I think the conversation has to be more about what is reasonable. You know, we have a house right across the street from a farm, and they put manure on the farm. It's unreasonable for me to think that that's not going to smell sometimes. And I think when you go and buy a house next to a sewer treatment plant, I think there has to be some expectation that there's going to be odor from time to time. So, you know, we've never really gotten into that discussion with them yet, but they're getting frustrated and they're making demands. And, you know, the staff came back with some really good reporting yesterday, and of course they were, you know, picking the reports apart. But, you know, when you heard how they put them together, it actually started to make a little more sense. So that drama will unfold, but you will hear about it probably in the media because they've got to start ramping it up. So,
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that too, because I'll probably be quoted in the paper too. But you know, they came in there, and there's a lot of passion going on in that area, and I get it, and the emotions that go with it, and so they basically gave us an ultimatum in the middle of November. We needed to approve this, and that was $8.5 million. I said that I cannot approve that the town of Comox residents would pay that without having some kind of fulsome report from the CAO, the regional district. That's not going to happen by the middle of November. They're working on that. You know, the old saying, we'll probably see this quoted sometime too, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it's got the grease. We have heard from the Curtis Road people and believe in their issue. But now, you know, you get more flies with honey. And I think now is the time that we take an approach and we work together. And this adversarial approach is not benefiting anyone. And I hope that both sides can start seeing this. And we cannot. I think the three of us here that sit on the Sewage Commission cannot approve our share of $8.5 million without a report that we can give to our residents who are paying this, because it has to be noted that the Curtis Road people don't pay into that. That's not part of their taxes. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Councillor Minions?
Yeah, I'll be quicker. Say it again. Goes away a little bit. Went to the Person's Day lunch, which was lovely. The disability minister meeting, which again, there was quite a bit of legislation paperwork that came home, but just sitting down with some residents in the community around us that have some pretty substantial physical disabilities. Some are the chronic illnesses, the ones you wouldn't see. It was just really interesting to talk to people about that and the kind of massive challenges they face when it comes to housing and healthcare and things like that. Attended the BIA events on Halloween at the fire hall and down at BIA, but that was just a family attendance, which is lovely. Met with Barbara Wiley, who is kind of spearheading. She ran for the Marks Party. She's being a contact for VIHA about the pathology services, which is an ongoing kind of debate with VIHA, whether they move services down to Victoria or they keep them up on North Island in our communities. So Alex and I met with her just to get some more information, because it's something that we do not understand from not having that medical background, but the board is dabbling into. And went to the Comox Valley Foundation Gala just as an attendee, but it was a great event. So there.
Okay, great. Councillor McGowan?
Okay, I also attended the Person's Day lunch. It was also lovely. Turns out my grandmother wasn't considered a person when she was born. Took a few years. The Accessibility and Inclusion Roundtable with the Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction was really, really interesting, and sitting with a group of people who have invisible disabilities and are on the autism spectrum and such that have to deal, well, you know, you don't want to be a young woman with an invisible illness and try and speak to a doctor about it. And that became very clear as we were speaking. And the minister got some great information. The D'Astaire board meeting was really great. Gord's Jim came to tell us all about emergency preparedness for D'Astaire if there was an emergency while people were in there, and it was very interesting to see what work has to be done within a regular household, let alone a big building with people who may, you know, not move as quickly or may need help getting around, or there's a lot of preparing that needs to be done. I attended an e-democracy carbon budget community tool introductory webinar, which was, you know, an interesting way to look at getting community input on what people are willing to do to mitigate the carbon issue and the climate crisis. Also attended the Urban Forest and Sustainable Cities Conference. Really, really interesting ideas there, and cool to see the drawings of varying streets covered in trees and walkways, and how the town could look with different ideas in place. Social planning, ground bag lunch update. This town is doing amazing work. It's very cool to hear how many people are coming together and working together to do great things. Same thing with the Coalition to End Homelessness meeting. We heard from the Campbell River planner, as well as the woman who just started the Comox Valley Advocates Association, and the upcoming work that she's going to be doing. They haven't even started yet, and they've got like 76 volunteers that just want to go out and help people get to a doctor's appointment on time, or have a coffee, or, you know, be human with people. Halloween down Comox Avenue was amazing, and spoke to a woman from Diabetes Canada about textile waste diversion, which, you know, we'll talk about in the future. It's been a long few weeks. We haven't had one of these for a while.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Swift.
Thank you. My report's really short because Councillor Grant,
This was very long.
Seal, Dyson,
You guys trade off, it's good.
already reported out on everything. I did the strategic planning at the regional district for the 2 days, the sewer meeting, the water meeting, the regional district meeting yesterday, and the cow meeting yesterday. Just dialing back to the sewer for a moment. When we started discussions with the Curtis Road people, we were under the impression that to cover these bioreactors, it was $3 million. And so as time is going along here, we're almost at 3 times that. So the other interesting thing was we had a diagram, and they've got these receptors where they measure the odor. And I think there were 16 or 18 receptors, and only 7 of them fell beyond the 1-point odor unit. So the purpose of doing this, or waiting and having a proper report, is to have more data, because they had only based all of this on 15 samples, I believe, and they've been mostly at the same time of year. So they want to gather more data, and we'll reconvene probably in January or February, to continue the discussions. But having said that, I know the Curtis Road people are really frustrated and angry about what they see as constant delays.
Well, and the other issue with that is that it has budget implications. So we need to get it into the next financial plan if we were to spend that money, so we couldn't move forward with this until March anyway. So to wait and get proper data is really neither here nor there, really.
And I guess the other thing to consider is this isn't the only expenditure of the sewage commission. So we're going to have to sit at the table and figure this out. Yeah. So thank you. That's my report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKenna.
Okay, so I attended the Community Justice Center meeting. I also went to a conversation with Maud Barlow, showcasing just amazing things that she's an amazing person, and so just challenging communities to be better. And Comox adopted in 2012 the Blue community, and we're doing well there, but there's still some work to do, as I found out as I conversed with the journalist about the Blue communities at Comox. So I'll be talking to our interim CAO on how we can be upholding our commitment. I did a transit tour with the residents as well. I'm getting kind of focused on transit a little bit, and it was around service and mobility, and just some interesting findings. I've talked to Al Fraser about it. Is all the I don't know if anybody else notices, but there's empty bus shelters, and it's because the bus now stops on the other side of the street. And so transit changed the routes, but didn't advise the municipalities. And so I have a follow-up meeting with the regional district with Mike Zabarski just to talk through some of the interesting stuff. But there's a lot of people in all of our communities in the Comox Valley standing in the rain right now, where there's a bus shelter across the street. So it's one of those things that needs to get rectified quickly, and so we'll see how that can happen. Attended a co-op housing meeting with the city coordinating Comox, Cumberland Regional District, and Comox First Nation. So it was really cool to sit across the table from everybody and talk about housing. And cooperative housing is something that David Frisch is really pushing Councillor Frisch. And so we're having some discussions there, just attending as a member of Comox, not speaking for council, obviously. But there will be some conversations upcoming around that. Attended the Comox Valley Coalition to End Homelessness today, as Councillor McGowan stated. It was a really good session. And the last thing I did today, actually, was I joined the online Eco Challenge that Helen Boyd sent out. I have sent you emails as follow-up and reminders. It's quite easy to do. It starts November 10th. It goes to November 21st. I would encourage everybody to just log on. There's a lot of actions you're probably already doing in your own homes right now. And as a community, it's kind of enlightening to see the little things you can do to challenge yourself to reduce your carbon footprint. So thanks, that's my report.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll try to be brief here. I've had a few calls for interviews. One interesting one that CAO, you and I will have to talk about, but this Business View magazine wanted to talk about Comox, what innovation and technology meant to us, and so I had about a 15-minute discussion. He then went to their editors, and they want to select Comox as a highlight of their magazine, and they want to talk further about some of the things that we've done in our community. So I'll talk with Al about that, but it's an interesting possibility. In no particular order, I attended the Economic Development Society's meeting, CVED's BIA meeting. Again, tomorrow we have the AGM at the basement of the Blackfin. Legion Poppy Day presentation, and you'll all be happy that you can now put that little pin thing in your poppy so you don't lose them all the time, and the Legion is okay with that. And not get pinned in the chin with your poppy. The Child Development Telethon on Sunday did that, and the phones with the MLA and the other two mayors. And I understand they made about $94,000. That was probably, a lot of that was because Councillor Grant was singing there at around 2.
I'll see that.
And I think the money was to see if, to get them not to sing. But anyway.
3 hours and 5 minutes. Want to see the performance? Sit through the 3 hours and 5 minutes.
As mentioned a few times, the sewage meeting yesterday, which was interesting, and again, I do emphasize or feel for those people, but there is a process that we have to adhere to, and I just hope that we can all work out that issue, because they're all well-meaning people. I know some of them personally. Today I attended the North Island College Regional Community Forum, and I was just building their strat plan for 2025. A good cross-reference of people from the valley. And yes, with Councillor Minion's saw her there at the Comox Valley Community Foundation, the Crimson Gala, which was nice. And they're big into getting community money and staying here. So that's all I have, and I think now we are going to move on to business arising from the public hearing. So the Comox zoning amendment bylaw 1929.
I'll move third reading.
Second?
Okay, so first, second, any questions on that? All in favor? Okay, that's carried.
Move adoption.
I'll second.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, is that for the next one?
We're on number 2 there, the
We're
adoption.
adopting number.
That's-
1929.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, we're good, so.
You're good? So, all in favor of that, was it? Okay, very thanks. Then the business regulation amendment bylaw 1930.
Move
Be
adoption.
adopted.
Second.
And do you have a question, Councilor?
Yeah, I was just wondering, everything's, there's a couple that are $500, failure to produce a license. Why are the visible cannabis items in those, are those like regulated provincially, or are they a lot higher for any other reason? That they're like 4 times higher than any of the other
To the
ones?
planner?
The major push, major emphasis when the beds in the province legalized is in terms of ensuring that while cannabis was available, it wasn't promoted in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
So more of the public health doing it.
Okay, thanks. Any other further questions? I do have a question, I don't know if it falls within here, but the frosted windows. Now, that's a provincial regulation, not ours. Is that something that you see being laxed down the road?
Right now, we're noticing that there isn't even a standardization in it. So depending on which inspector you get in the province, how much frosting, and if you're allowed to have little light wells or not. I would hope that as this rolls out and hopefully the impact of these cannabis stores will be very small on the neighborhoods, and that would then alleviate some of the concerns so that yes, they don't have any cannabis for view from the outside, but that we don't get the wall off effect.
Yeah, I think there's some real safety concerns too, because, some, single women who are working in there, or couples, and nobody can see what's going in there. So I know we're straying away from that, but that's really something I'd like to keep an eye on as we go, and perhaps we can lobby our MLAs for this. So we have a mover and a seconder. No further questions?
I just have one quick, does it mean installed security bars, like you have installed security bars, or you haven't? I'm saying with visible, like you're supposed to have visible shutters or not, and is that just for cannabis stores?
It's so the violation would be that you install them in violation of the bylaw with the shutters.
You're not supposed to have.
You're not supposed to have them. So in terms of these specific, in terms of the security bars, I believe it's within a certain visible from the windows. So
And is that cannabis store specific, or is that?
cannabis store specific, so no, it does not apply to things like liquor stores or other businesses. It was a specific concern in terms of both that and the sort of displays and advertising. There was some illegal stores that were going on, primarily in the mainland, that were creating a negative community image or were promoting cannabis use.
Okay, so you're just trying to.
Ensure that it fits in with the neighborhood as opposed to, yes.
Okay.
Seems high.
Thank you. So we'll take the vote. All in favor? That's great. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the public on anything? Do we have any media questions? No. So we'll move for adjournment.
Move.
All right, all in favor?